Good afternoon, welcome to Market Wrap number 206. Stuart Williamson here at the helm. Firstly, apologies for my look. I had an altercation with a mountain bike. It's not a good look, I know, but it's just a bit of a bump, and it's a week old now, so hopefully it'll disappear before long. Thank you for showing your concern. This week we're going to talk about two things. Election announced. What does it mean? Is it the end of the world now for property investors? And secondly, inflation down to 2.3%. What does that mean? Is it a perfect storm and a great opportunity to buy property? So listen on, and you might hear a little bit about it and perhaps learn a little bit, potentially not. So election announced it's going to be in July this year, July the 4th. Caught a lot of people, I think, including the Labour Party, on the hop. A lot quicker to see, a lot more interested to see old Sonny in his wetsuit outside Downing Street. A bit sort of like watching John Major on his soapbox. You know, it's a good touch, rather than being in a walled, warm politician environment, which the Labour Party went out and did. So it was a nice touch, very presidential, I think, and that's what he appears to be arguing his stance on. You know, things can only get better, and boy, it's true. Look at the NHS, things like that. What a shocker. What does it mean to the property world? Well, probably not a lot. One's left centre, the other's right centre. They haven't got much of an agenda going on the property front, but if you wait a moment, we'll go into what the BBC and the Times say. Basically, it's good news that the election is so soon. If it had been 5 months away, we'd have 5 months of campaigning, and then the market just sitting there going, what's going on? And any market hates not knowing. So the fact it's only 5 weeks away, if people are selling their properties, it'll go through. If people are thinking about selling, they'll probably hold off, which is a mistake, because there's nothing to lose by selling now, because nothing will really happen after that's very much different than now. It'll take a bit of time for it to come through. So that's the general view. There was going to be a market bounce, I think, after inflation figures getting so low. There won't be now, because people will be like, well, let's wait. And I think that's what will happen. So that's positive on the election, the fact it's so soon. So let's just cover inflation, what happened there. Basically, it's down to 2.3%. It was at 11.1 3 years ago. What are the biggest changes? Energy prices are down from 27% so far this year. It doesn't mean that inflation's gone. It's still going up. Wage inflation is still nearly 7%. It just means that general inflation has come down. And it's getting close to what the Conservative Party and the Bank of England want, which is 2%, which is their target rate. Rishi Sunak, of course, takes the perfect opportunity to say something. Today marks a major moment for the economy, with inflation back to normal. I don't really think so. It's just that it's back to normal in some areas, but certainly not in wage inflation. So what it'll lead to? It'll lead to that, and the election happening so early will lead to cuts occurring. And the reason being is that whoever wins, and it's more likely to be the Labour Party, will come out, and they've got 2.5 years really to make it work before they start getting into the final part of their semester, and it'll be a case of, oh, we've got to start counting votes again, which is what happens. So the first half, they'll be full of swagger. So that means those interest rates will come. Interest cuts will come, and they'll try and capitalise on what the Conservatives have done. I mean, there was a view that a Conservative conference in November was going to be when they'll announce an election, because by then things should be better. But Conservatives try to go early and make it a presidential sort of race. Is Keir Starmer as good as Rishi Sunak? So we'll see what the answer is there. So interest rates will come down, and I think we're already seeing that. You know, you've got HSBC, TSB, and Barclays cutting rates last week. Now, why did they do that? What do they know? And the point is that a lot of this stuff we're talking about now is already built into the market. It's already costed in. You know, the big banks in the City of London, in New York, in Paris or Frankfurt, wherever it is, they know what's going on. They would have known that there's every chance that they will call an early election, you know, and then price it in. Remember the story about Rothschilds? You know, it was at the Battle of Waterloo, and he bought all the stocks that would benefit from a alliance win in London before the news arrived back. How did he do that? He had carrier pigeons at Waterloo that release information. You know, that's what these people do. They price it into the market already, and that's why they're multi-millionaires, and we're not. And so it's a case of much of the things that are happening now is priced in. Interest rates will be cut. You know, the banks are already starting to get a jump on that by cutting their rates and getting in first. So what will happen? Ceteris paribus, rates will be cut by 0.75% this year or by early next. What else will happen? The rental reform bill will go through the house. It will affect landlords' rights. Rental caps will not come in because they've tried it in Scotland. And again, you try things and try and be clever. I used to have a guy I worked with, a tax advisor, and he said that tax planning or any sort of legal planning is like using a rubber sheet. If you stretch a rubber sheet to cover a loophole, then behind it, naturally another hole appears. And that's what happens. Another hole appears and so there's another loophole. And this is a perfect example. We started doing reused wood. So you get old wood from one house, if you use it in another house, you'd have to pay VAT on it. And that's like covering a loophole. It was great, a loophole opened. And so his thought was, okay, what can I do with this? I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll set up a unit trust that invests purely in recycled wood. It's tax-free. And it was. Until the revenue saw it and they're like, nah, you can't do that. That's not what it was made for. But in the interim, he made a heap of money on recycled wood in a unit trust. So Scotland, they're bringing rent controls. Scotland currently has the highest rental increases in the UK. Why? Because people have found a way around it. That's what humans are good at, finding their way around things. So there'll be no rental caps coming in. So what does it mean to you and I, to the average investor? It's potentially a buying opportunity. Interest rates will fall. If you're looking at buying for the longer term, i.e. Warren Buffett, don't think about it for 5 minutes if you're not buying for 5 years. My view is don't think about it for 10 minutes if you're not buying for 10 years, because that's the way property is. Trying to buy flips and this sort of stuff, short-term turnovers, making money, it's a thing of the past. The market's not suited to that now. So it's a buying opportunity because rates are coming down, rental returns are going up. At the moment they're across the UK, I think they're about 11% rising every year. That won't continue because immigration will be brought under control, and it'll only be targeted immigration going forward as opposed to general immigration. There's some great articles in two of the media outlets. The Times came out and said, a government led by a party emphasising affordability, affordable housing, may introduce policies that encourage construction of new homes, provide subsidies to first-time buyers, increase the obligations on affordable homes and or implement rent controls to protect tenants. According to the report in the Times, such measures could stimulate the housing sector and make home ownership more accessible, although it might also reduce profit margins for developers and landlords, both private and institutional. They're talking about the Labour Party. That's what they will probably bring in. So it's not that painful, but it will affect some parts of the market. Conversely, the BBC said a government with a focus on deregulation and market liberalisation might prioritise reducing taxes and encouraging private individuals into property. This could lead to increased development activity and attract foreign investors. However, this approach could also exacerbate issues like housing affordability and inequality, and if not balanced with adequate social policies. That's Conservatives. I mean, that's what they've always been about. They need to change their ways somehow. So post-election, two very similar parties doing the same sort of thing. Interest rates going down, it could be a great buying opportunity. We certainly believe it is. You've got to look at it and say to yourself, in 20 years, will there be more or less people in the UK? What's the answer to that? In 20 years, will there be more of that land available for building houses in the UK or less? Answer yourself those two questions and you can work out whether or not buying investment property in the UK is a good idea or not. Now, after last week's market wrap, a gent wrote on the blog, bizarrely, I think Savills could be correct, but it will not be that houses will be disproportionately worth more than other assets, but that the currency has further devalued and houses are a place to park money. While they will be up, they won't be up as high as stocks or liquid assets as they are illiquid assets. Assets will survive this next currency collapse, and we can expect a £10 cup of coffee here to come. I don't know where he drinks, but I've already experienced £10 cups of coffee. So he's saying basically that houses are just a place to put money to deal with inflation. Well, there is an argument that is true. One of the commenters on this, David Heyman, bless you, it's refreshing to hear someone acknowledge that all money is debt, therefore ballooning house prices and mortgages is the same as just money creation, without actually creating anything, tricking you to thinking you're richer when everyone else is getting poorer through the inflation it causes. Okay, one of the disparities over the last 20 years, 25 years, 30 years I've seen is the rich are certainly getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer. And so that is true to a certain extent. If you have money, you can make more money rather than the other way around. But having said that, property is not just about making money. if you buy an old house and do it up, that's a great experience. You know, you're recreating something that was built 150 years ago by specialist builders, and now you're giving it another lease of life. You know, I buy old yachts and do them up on the side. I made some money, not a great deal. You know, as Ted Heath said, you know, it's like ripping up £5 notes in the shower. That's what sailing's all about. But it can be a very enjoyable experience because you're giving money to the future. My children will use these yachts. People buy them and they get to experience them. And by buying an old house and doing it up, you're giving it another lease of life. By buying a flat and giving people places to live that are quality, you're giving them opportunities to improve their lives. So it's not just about parking money and making money, it's about adding some value as well. And that's what I think property is all about. Not just making money, not being a landlord that screws people into the ground. That's not how it works. So anyway, thank you for listening. Do hope you enjoyed it. Do apologise for looking a bit like, Joe Bugner after fighting Muhammad Ali. Don't know who remembers that. Someone said to me I looked like Gorbachev. Anyone remembers who Gorbachev was? He'll probably get a bonus point for that. Thank you very much for listening. Do take care. Cheerio.